Today, 16% of mankind survives on less than $1 a day. They are known as the bottom billion. With new technologies developed for millions of dollars and 6 billion humans on the planet, what does the future hold? By 2030, there will be 8 billion people on Earth with tremendous needs for food, water, and energy, and overall demand 45% higher than today. How will emerging technologies affect the bottom billion? Can we cope with the demand for food, water, and energy? Can we provide enough? In order to answer these questions, we have developed two scenarios, Snowflake and Shield. The Snowflake scenario shows us the future of countries participating in a common approach to global issues. The Shield scenario explores what could happen if nations progress to a more sovereign environment.
These two scenarios share 5 unavoidable facts that help to shape the way the future will unfold. First, the world's population will continue to grow, expanding from 6 billion people today to 8 billion in 2030. The majority of this growth takes place outside of the OECD countries. Second, the world economy will remain cyclical and will go through a recessionary phase between 2020 and 2022. Third, the OECD countries are heavily indebted and will need to address their debt levels in the coming years. Fourth, religion will remain a strong influence on the world stage. Islam will expand more quickly than other major religions due to more rapid population growth in Islamic countries. Fifth, resource demand will outpace population growth. Energy consumption will increase 50%, and food and water demand will increase by 30%, creating scarcities in several global regions. In the Snowflake scenario, collaboration and specialization drive technological advancement. Each region of the globe will develop where they excel. The Great Recession of 2008 turns out to be a double-dip recession. It continues until 2012, with recovery beginning in 2013. Developed nations like the US, Japan, and Canada work hard to restructure over the next few years, and the US finally pushes through universal healthcare reform. This has great effects on the ability of biotech and pharmaceutical companies to provide drugs, diagnostics such as paper diagnostics, and even in vitro meat to sub-Saharan Africa. The healthcare reform is funded primarily by reduction in US-produced food subsidies, causing global food prices to rise, and also has effects on bioethanol prices. The increase in food prices allows SSA and Brazil to be more competitive in the global food market, adding gains to both regions' GDP. Brazil becomes more competitive in the marketplace for its food exports, and they become the global leader in development of third-generation biofuels. To recover its struggling economy, the European Union relaxes labor market and immigration restrictions, and seeks to expand its scope, opening opportunities for countries such as Turkey to join. This expanding EU, in addition to the rising energy prices, places political pressure on Russia's energy production. In return, Russia seeks allies from the Middle East and China, and also works to further break down its oligarchy structure. A free market begins to reign, allowing its rich natural resources to proliferate across the globe, and the wealth from which is spread through its population more evenly. India and China share in each other's advancements. India becomes a global leader in telecommunication, personal transportation, and battery technology. India also changes its stance on climate change initiatives and becomes a leading investor in renewable technology. The job creation attracts more of its population to live in urban areas, placing pressures to utilize resources effectively. China places its investment in infrastructure, building up high-speed rail networks connecting super micro-cities, constructed using the newest nanotechnology materials. This increase in infrastructure is paralleled by the government's relaxation of mobility restrictions, allowing its population, or more specifically, its workforce, to migrate where they are needed. China's continued investment in Africa turns Africa into a production hub. This increases the potential of the region to grow into the next global manufacturing powerhouse, as governments become more stabilized and information technology increases the availability of education. With all the improved enhancements in rural and infrastructure, information technology, and availability of biopharma products, the quality of life of the bottom billion dramatically increases, and the average living wage per day is increased from $1 in 2010 to $5 in 2030. Due to the restructured economies and efficient sharing of technology, the world as a whole is better able to weather the economic recession of 2022. Economic progress is able to keep pace with population growth, and the bottom billion does not become the bottom billions.
In the SHIELD scenario, 2030 will be marked by interaction and consumption at the regional level. The prosperity, opulence, and free trade paradigms of the last 50 years will be replaced by sustainability, frugality, and neighborhood commerce, resulting in a new economic model of self-reliant regions. The diffusion of nuclear weapons, terrorism targeting the US and EU, and micro-wars due to the rise of tribalism in the Middle East, Africa, and Asia contribute to a world where each region is looking out for its own interests. Regional, small-scale production will allow for rationalized and more efficient alignment of local production with local needs. Resource shortages develop, resulting from decreased global trade, and leads to challenges for many developed countries to meet demand. In these local economies, transportation is limited to shared transportation. Nanotechnologies will allow deployment of highly needed infrastructure projects with high cost savings, but only in technology-rich regions such as India. New technologies will not be shared with neighboring countries so as to establish an advantage. Failure of global governance models such as the United Nations results in a redistribution of leadership into three main hegemonic areas: China, India, and the developed regions like the EU and North America. China will continue to outpace other countries' growth until 2021, when a global recession will force China to exhaust much of its cash surplus to recover and potentially face indebtedness for the first time in decades. In Europe, internal cultural divergence driven by an ethnic and religious conflict results in a breakdown of the European Union. This shrinkage leaves the EU reeling and little money available for foreign investment. Thanks to a more stable political system, R&D investment in strategic sectors, and cultural convergence with developed nations, India will outpace China in the race to become a global leader in technology, reaching levels of technology development close to OECD nations. In addition, a significant rise in India's middle class will force India to seek ways to better utilize its resources, and three distinct social classes will emerge: the middle class, the elite, and the poor. The bottom billion will receive less aid from developed countries. Sub-Saharan Africa will initially profit from foreign direct investment of China in exchange for its natural resources. However, pharmaceuticals and agricultural technologies fail to penetrate Sub-Saharan Africa. Major states such as Nigeria may benefit initially, while lesser states like the Democratic Republic of the Congo will continue to remain among the world's poorest. As China struggles with recovery after its recession, developed nations look to Africa to capture its natural resources, giving rise to tensions among themselves as well as China, as they look to benefit by installing more stable political systems to support their mining and export programs. Given the new economic model and neighborhood commerce, in 2030 the world's bottom billion will nearly double to 1.8 billion, with over 20% of the world's population living on just $1 per day.